Season 5 is officially in the writer's room, and it looks like a long wait before we see the gang again. But the Duffer Brothers didn't just leave us to mourn Eddie's death and make fan cams of the Master of Puppets scene. They recently teased that Season 5 will answer some of our most burning questions about the Upside Down. But that's not all we're talking about in this video, so let's dive in. First up, fans will learn the origins of the Upside Down in Season 5. And apparently, it's not a Taco Bell on a busy afternoon. But seriously though, where did the Upside Down come from? And why did it look like a close-up of Sauron's eye? Well, Season 4 gave us some clues as to where it all started. Dustin theorizes that the Upside Down's probably been around for centuries, and when El yeeted one through the rift, the line separating our world from the Upside Down began thinning. And it makes sense that one immediately learned to control the Darkstorm or Mind Flare, and created a replica of Hawkins and his home. Okay, but we have so many more questions. If Upside Down has existed for centuries, has anyone else made contact with it? Surely Henry Creel wasn't the only sensitive child in the world, right? Well, according to Ross Duffer, all our burning questions are gonna be answered in Season 5. Every season so far has been building up to this, and honestly, if we find out that it's been Stephen King in there all along, we're gonna be pissed. M. Night Shyamalan would love that though. Now, the bros knew from day one that the main villain would somehow be related to 11. Since all the kids at Hawkins have numbers, they figured that it would all lead to finding out who number 1 was. In fact, they hadn't figured out all the details for Vecna until Season 4, and he didn't even have a name when the series started. In an interview with IndieWire, Ross explained that they never knew that one would be called Henry Creel and Vecna. They knew they wanted some kind of entity controlling everything that was going on, but Vecna wasn't even a thing that crossed their minds. Oh, and here's an interesting detail from Season 1. Remember when Will was riding his bike back home in Episode 1, and he got a jump scare from a creepy humanoid feature in the middle of the road? Now, obviously, it's supposed to be the Demogorgon, right? And its silhouette is basically hiding its horrible mandibles. But notice the left hand. See how it's larger than the right? Yup, that's still not Vecna, but it's still an interesting detail. And it'd be awesome if the Duffer Bros retconned this scene so that it is Vecna in the middle of the road. It'd bring the whole story full circle, don't you think? And you never know. Once Season 5 drops, the Duffers could edit the scene the same way they did Will's birthday. But the thing we're curious about is why the Upside Down is stuck on November 6, 1983. And this question's been itching at the back of our heads since Season 4 ended. One could argue that the reason November 6 is so significant is that that's the day El made contact with the other side, and it's also the day Will got kidnapped by the Mind Flayer. So, does the Upside Down synchronize its time with our world? Or did it just take a snapshot of Hawkins the way it was on November 6, 1983, and never changed? Well, if that's the answer, then maybe it's like a Polaroid that captures a moment in time and space. It'd be a poetic explanation of the whole thing, if not that actual reason why it's stuck in 1983. And if you think about it, the Polaroid explanation could also be a metaphor for nostalgia. Now, hear us out. Hawkins tries to move forward, but it can't. The adults and the kids keep being pulled back to the Upside Down, despite trying to escape it. No matter what they do, they end up in the same place. Maybe that's why it's latched onto Will so tightly. Will hates change, and he wishes things go back to the way they were in 1983. He'd give anything to be back in Mike's basement, playing D&D with the rest of the gang. Lord knows millennials can relate to that, since they always talk about wanting to go back to the good old days of floppy disks, Capri Suns, and Tamagotchis. But again, that's the nostalgia talking, not the Duffers. So we'll leave it to them to answer these questions. Next, Season 5 will need to break a long-time series tradition, and that tradition is killing off characters we fall in love with right after introducing them to us. They did it with Barb in Season 1, Bob in Season 2, Alexi in Season 3, and with Season 4, we had the biggest gut punch of all, Eddie. A lot of fans on Twitter and Reddit felt that his death was unjustified, especially considering how little time we had to process it. And there's another problem with this tradition. The stakes don't feel high enough if none of the main cast dies by the end. Now, we're not saying the Duffers should straight up butcher Steve to make sure the stakes are high enough. That's not gonna help at all, and we'll need therapy to get over that. By killing off new additions so none of the OGs get hurt, you reduce the impact of how dangerous someone like Vecna is. In other words, it's a catch-22. Chrissy and Fred Benson's death makes sense because they set up the stakes our heroes need to deal with, and they almost nailed it with Max's supposed death in Luca's arms. And if she died right there and then, it would have solidified that things would never be the same again for our heroes. But we find out she's still alive, lost somewhere in the Upside Down. What's more, Millie and Noah called the Duffers out on this exact problem. By the end of Season 4, everyone from the original gang makes it out alive, and Hopper and Dr. Brenner came back from the dead. dead. So it seems the Duffers have a fear of committing to the deaths of their favorite characters. You know, we knew our exes and the Duffers had something in common, but we'll spare you the gratuitous details. Now, back in May, Millie and Noah spoke to the Wrap about the longtime Stranger Things tradition, and they weren't holding back with their criticism. Noah said that the bros should basically have a scene where a bunch of main characters get massacred by Vecna or his demo babies. Millie, on the other hand, joked that the cast can't even take one photo because the group's so huge now, and she added that Stranger Things should take a leaf out of Game of Thrones' book of killing people. That's one of the reasons why it was so appealing to audiences. You didn't know who was going to live or die, and the writers didn't hold back either. Well, at least until season 5 or so. Now, Millie had a pretty interesting suggestion for the series finale. She believes that it's ridiculous that the Duffers would keep bringing back old faces, like Hopper or Brenner, but never really kill anyone off. So she said, hey, kill me off instead. And we're not sure about killing just 11. For starters, Elle dying to protect her friends and family, and the rest of Hawkins is something everyone would expect going into season 5. And we think subverting those expectations in an interesting way would be a far more compelling finale. Of course, we're hoping there aren't any Deus Ex Machinas or some magical MacGuffin, but we'll let the Duffers figure that one out too. But they heard Millie and Noah's criticism and have an answer. Now, we will give them props for keeping Robin alive. She's smart, she's goofy, and she really needs to find a girlfriend since it's the end of the world and everything. Other than her though, every new person we loved died tragically. But now the official word is that season 5 won't have any new additions. Speaking with IndieWire, Ross explained that every time they add someone new, their intention is to fully integrate them into the narrative. And the best addition so far, in our opinion, has been Eddie Munson. It felt like he'd always been there, just in some other classroom or in the school parking lot. But on the other hand, season 4 felt like it was straining under the weight of all the characters and subplots, and that meant we didn't get enough time to spend with the OGs. Like seriously, Lucas deserved more screen time than Jason Carver. And a quick side note, we totally forgot he existed and that he died in the finale. It's like our Lucas-loving brains completely erased him, and the Duffers get that now. So, season 5 probably won't have any new cast members. Instead, the bros are going to focus on the OGs. Since the old tradition is out, we should be worried about the OGs, especially Steve and Dustin. And that's a wrap on this video. Thanks for watching. What do you think of the Duffers' decision not to include new characters in season 5? And what are your theories for how the show will end? Tell us down below. And as always, be sure to give this video a huge thumbs up and subscribe to our channel so you never miss out on more Stranger Things news. See you in the next one.